Welcome to my video on how to get rid of fungus gnats. This video is not for the faint of heart, as you can see, as it might gross you out a bit. So if you don't want to be grossed out, please click off the video now. As you can see, I have somewhat of a devastating infestation on these plants. In fact, I lost a few plants because of these things, because they eat the roots and then the plants die. I've tried using sticky traps, and while they're clearly catching a lot of the flies, the number of them is still increasing massively. So it's time to take some more drastic action. There are 4 steps to the life cycle of these things. They go from egg to larvae to pupae to fly. And the pupae can't quite fly yet, so they just run around and they don't lay the eggs, but once they start flying, they lay about 300 to 400 eggs within 5 days, then they die. That's why my fly population is currently massive, and it's reached so bad I almost threw these plants and the pots in the bin, and it stinks as well. I don't know how these flies smell so bad, but they do. So the first step is to, if you've been using sticky traps, just remove them from the plants. This looks like a pupae because it's not flying, it's just running around. And it's important to try and kill any stray ones like that. There you go, you see he's trying to fly, but he can't quite. Yeah, he's jumping and trying to fly, but he can't quite fly, he or she. Or perhaps he's non-binary. Sorry, apologies there, Mr. Pupae, Ms. Pupae. Or sorry, they, Pupae. There he is, jumping again. He's like the teenager. They're like the teenager of flies, because they can't fly at that stage. Squash. I apologise, but I can't have you eating my plants. Okay, so they eat the root of the plants at the larvae stage, and that's why the plants die. So what I'm going to do here is I'm mixing 3% hydrogen peroxide with water, and the ratio you want is 1:1. You can mix it weaker, but I prefer to mix it this strength because I just want to guarantee that I get them all, kill them all basically. And I'm actually using 9% here, so this one, the ratio is 1:5, and I can put the mathematics in the description if you want. So I'm using 200 milliliters of hydrogen peroxide, and I've got 1 liter of water. And hydrogen peroxide goes in first, then the water second, so that it mixes and dilutes more easily. You don't want to put really strong hydrogen peroxide on the plants because you don't want to kill them. But this should kill the flies without killing the plants. So this is my worst affected plant. And you want to pour it on so that it there you see the flies are all trying to escape because of the poison. There's one going. So you want to pour it on so that the solution covers the soil completely, and it will drain. There's another one, you see, they're sensing something's going on here and we don't like it. They're all trying to escape. Now this is a bad thing because now they're all going to be flying around my apartment. So if you can do this in the garden, then it's even better. What you don't want is for the flies to fly off and then land back on it a day later. So I'm throwing these sticky traps away, hundreds of them on there. Now this bubbling means it's actually killing the larvae. So each time it touches organic matter, it will release an oxygen molecules. And yeah, more dead flies in the water here. So this hydrogen peroxide converts to water and oxygen. See, they're dying. And in the process it kills these fungus gnats and the larvae. So it won't kill the flies unless it comes into contact with them. So that's why these ones are dead. But the ones that are now flying around my apartment won't die, so that's why I'm going to have to be careful with how I do this. So this looks like it's probably killed hundreds of eggs. All of this oxygen being released is making the soil expand, and that means it's killing a lot of larvae under the soil. It only kills the larvae, so you need to retreat it again 2 weeks later once those new eggs that are already in there, once they've hatched. So I'm going to treat all my plants at the same time because I don't want these flies jumping from one to the next. Then the problem will just continue. So here is another plant I'm going to treat, and I can see there are some in there. These are some more sticky traps from the other plants. I'm going to throw these away. I really had a massive problem here, and it really stank. You can tell when you've got a problem because if it's foaming like that, then it means it's coming into contact with organic matter. And this one had a lot of larvae inside. It's actually making the soil drip over the edges, but this actually will be really good for the plants. So now I've cleaned up, I've had to take a lot of the soil out the top because it's been coming off the edges. But this will help the soil because it puts oxygen into the soil, which will help the plants to grow. And it turns the soil into it's a bit like compost, like what you get from the shops. So once this soil has dried, it will feel a lot better and look a lot better than it did originally. It was quite compacted originally. So it solves two problems at the same time. So here we are the next day. I've cleaned the plants up. So we've got 5 more flies. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So they must have been flying around the room and then they landed back on it. And fortunately these sticky traps caught them. So it's important to use sticky traps as well as the hydrogen peroxide solution because you want to catch the flies as they're coming back in onto the plants. And as you can see, it's all clean, the soil. This was the infested one, and there's nothing crawling around there. It's completely clear. And there's your job done. So thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed this, click like and subscribe. If you want an update, just let me know in the comments, and I will update you on the situation in a couple of weeks. Cheers.